At SAIS, we're very excited today to be starting our project, SAIS, the SAIS Walls Left to Fall project here at SAIS. 20 years ago, the Berlin Wall came down pretty suddenly. Suddenly the wall was gone, the Cold War was over, but actually it took a while for this wall to come down, and it took a debate and a discussion to take place between people in Eastern Europe and East Germany for this to actually take place. It was intellectuals, students, professors, workers, everyday people that came together and talked about things they wanted to change in their country. And it was these debates that started years earlier that eventually led to the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. The wall over there is the wall of the past. That's what we've accomplished already. The wall behind us is the walls, stands for the walls that still exist in this world. And we want to invite every one of you to participate in a discussion that we're having for the next week about walls that still need to fall in this world. They could be between countries, they could be separating people, they could be walls that keep people from saying what they want to say, reading what they want to read, or praying to whom they want to pray. This is the concept. We want to invite you all to talk about this. We want you all to draw on this wall. That's what it is. That's what it's here for. There are markers at the front desk, so put your ideas on walls that still need to fall in this world. Join us for movie nights every night at 8 in Nizza 417, where we show movies about the time, how the wall came down, and tear down the wall with us on November 9th at 12 here. I'm very happy to have with us here today somebody who has experience in tearing down walls, Nafisi. When she's not writing best-selling and deep and intellectual novels about changes in society, she's also the Director of Cultural Conversations here at SAIS. So I'm very honored that she will be our first guest speaker here in this this daily series here for the next week, Walls Left to Fall. So please join me in welcoming Nafisi here at SAIS.
How do I actually see if it takes photos?
This is lovely. Thank you. This is such an amazing, I'm very honored to be here. And as I was coming down here, and I just like to have something like notes in my hands anyway. And I was just making notes, my memories about the wall. When the wall collapsed in Berlin, I was living in another place filled with walls, which was in Tehran at that time. And I remember how the news would come to us piecemeal. And I kept thinking of walls we create all the time around ourselves. And the wall in Berlin, of course, becomes a symbol of all these other walls that we also have to deal with in a country like this, in a democracy as well. And I was thinking today that perhaps the only way you can celebrate the defeat of those elements that created that wall in front of us is to try to learn the lessons. I mean, to know about the past would make us understand where we are in the present, and to understand where we're in the present, then that is the only way that we can move towards the future. And I wanted just to discuss with you what I feel. I mean, and I wanted to talk about the idea of the totalitarian mindsets that constantly create the walls, and how these mindsets are very similar to one another. So this sort of breaking of the wall is an everyday business. It's not something that you're done with. One Cold War, one Iron Curtain goes, another one is built. And I was thinking about, when you think of a country like Iran, you do not really connect it with Europe. You think of Iran, you do not immediately think, oh, East Germany, Poland, the Soviet Union. But the interesting thing is that, in fact, all totalitarian, it reminds me of Tolstoy's famous first sentence, that all totalitarians are, in a sense, the same. They work, they sort of are based upon the same principles. And in my country, because of the walls that were created after the Islamic Revolution, Eastern Europe became our kith and kin. We didn't speak the same language. You know, we came from very different countries, but names like Milosh and Kundera and Akhmatova and Mandelstam and Solzhenitsyn and Heinrich Böll and Günter Grass, these became words that were far more familiar to us than names like, which you're all familiar, Ahmadinejad, Khamenei, Khomeini, because there is a kinship that goes beyond the boundaries of nationality, of race, of gender, of religion, of ethnicity. And the fact, the concept of breaking the walls is constantly breaking those barriers, those boundaries, and you know, not segregating one another in these categories that we're constantly creating for one another. So I kept thinking about those walls and how much I was reading at that time about behind the Iron Curtain and the walls that existed in my countries. And I realized that the first thing that a totalitarian mindset targets is civil liberties and the idea of the individual. The most threatening thing to any totalitarian mindset, no matter where you live, is the idea that there are a multiplicity of voices, a multivocality that they cannot control. And the first wall that they build is to sort of create one voice, to impose one voice upon all the other voices, to take out the color, to take out the nuances. And so their first targets become civil society, between individual rights and human rights. And therefore, whether you live in the Soviet Union or whether you live in Iran, the first targets become minorities, those who work with freedom of expression, cultural, those who work with in culture, and in my case, of course, women. They become the first targets. Freedom of expression becomes the first target of any totalitarian mindsets, and that is why you think of Soviet Union and you think of Eastern Europe, and then you go to Iran, and who are the ones who are at the forefront of this struggle? They are not the political, they're not just the political dissidents. It was first, like in Soviet Union, the Mensheviks and the Trotskyites, and you would go even to the Jewish doctors near the end. But there are those who speak what we call, it becomes a cliche, who speak truth to the power. Those who existentially cannot not tell the truth. And that is why academics, that is why universities and any place that is called culture, that is why painters, poets, writers, intellectuals, they all die in gulags. One of the most beautiful, one of the most important poets of 20th century, Osip Mandelstam, who was not at all political, had to die in the gulag because for him poetry came first, and no political mindset can tolerate the revelation of truth that comes out of places of knowledge. And that is why, standing opposite my good friend Bani, may I call you by your first name? Everybody is intimate enough with you to know. And looking at this building, I think that this is where it should all start. And please interrupt me, don't let me go on. I will take about 10 more minutes. And I wanted to give you some examples so that you will understand that totalitarianism, like democracy, has no boundaries. That some people in this country, when they talk about Iran or Afghanistan or Iraq, they say things like, oh, but it's their culture. And I keep talking about this, that, to think that a woman in Afghanistan today, or a woman in Iran today, really does not want to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that freedom of choice is really an American thing, or a Western thing, is the most condescending attitude you can have towards other people. And totalitarian mindsets, whether they're in China and they talk about Asian values and the walls that they create through that, or whether they are in Soviet Union and they talked about decadent Western values, values, or whether they are in the Islamic Republic of Iran and they talk about Islamic values. These made up values cover the essential humanity of us all.